This is Support is Sexy, episode 261, with Karen Young, founder and CEO of We Shave. Welcome to Support is Sexy. I'm your host, Elayne Fluker, entrepreneur, author, and founder of Chic Rebellion Media. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, I interview inspiring women entrepreneurs who share their wins and their lessons to help you take your business and your life to the next level and create something sexy. Here we go. Hi, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Support is Sexy. I'm so excited to have you here. It just would not be the same without you. And today, if you're listening to this in real time, happy Monday. But whenever you're listening, I hope you're having a fantastic day or evening whenever you're listening. Just so glad to have you here. And I know you're going to be so excited to hear this interview with Karen Young. And Karen is the founder and CEO of a company called We Shave. So that's OUI Shave. And Karen is really disrupting the beauty industry with her product, which is a whole new system, skincare, just beautiful products that are meant to give us a whole different kind of experiencing when shaving. Usually most of us have irritation or other negative experiences because of the products or the shaving creams or different things that we use. Karen has a solution that started for her out of her own pain point. So that's something that we all know about in business. It either comes from a pain point that you have or a pain point that you notice. Karen experienced this and created something fantastic to solve that problem in a beautiful way. So she talks about product development in this episode, testing your idea, the importance of getting it out there to market and really being the person or the face or the voice for the product. So much great information about launching a product in this episode. But also what I appreciate is Karen shares the not so great part of the entrepreneurial journey, which, you know, I'm all about that. Not that we want anyone to have horrible experiences as an entrepreneur, but we all know the journey is up and down. And Karen makes it a point to make this distinction between the true story or the true journey for most entrepreneurs and the dangers really of the successful entrepreneur narrative. So I really love that discussion, and I truly appreciate you, Karen, for being so open and honest about your experiences, the ups, the downs, and the beautiful product that you've created today with We Shave. So on this episode, some of the other things that you'll learn from Karen are lessons she learned from the failure of her first business, which isn't this one, the business before this, and how she's doing this business differently, the importance of seeking therapy when needed, and prioritizing self-care. You know, we're all about that. What Karen has learned about measuring the success of your business beyond social media, also how to attract retailers to your product, and what she learned about the importance of, say it with me, support. And you know, we're all about it around here. So again, great information in here and really honest storytelling. So I hope you enjoy it and let me and Karen and We Shave know what you think. All right. So now without further ado, Karen Young. So Karen, thank you so much for joining us for an episode of Support is Sexy. I'm excited to chat with you.
I'm so excited to be here, Elayne. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So our first question, when did you first fall in love with entrepreneurship?
You know, I think I have had a love affair with entrepreneurship for a very long time, ever since I was a kid. I think one of the stories that kind of highlights that for me is I remember I was in junior high school, I believe, and the teacher had handed out an assignment, and the assignment was something about like envisioning your future and sort of reinventing something. And I remember I was always so annoyed because I remember walking in the streets of Brooklyn and the sort of street sweeper would pass. And I was so annoyed by the street sweeper because I was just like, it's not doing anything. It's literally just like brushing, you know, like the dust and garbage sort of to the side, but it's not doing anything. So I was like, I'm going to reinvent the street sweeper. And I went home and I got out a piece of like copy paper and I drew this funky looking street sweeper that sort of like picked everything up and made the streets look gorgeous. And, you know, it actually did its job. And I went to class and I showed that, you know, we kind of did like show and tell and so on. So I showed that. And, you know, the teacher was a little bit confused and she's like, oh, so are you going to reinvent it? Or are you going to drive as street sweeper? Like, what are you going to do? And I was just like, no, I'm going to own a fleet of these after I reinvent the entire thing, the entire
Really?
process.
You already had a vision for it.
Yeah. I was so young, but I wasn't surrounded by entrepreneurs, and I didn't know anyone in my family, that was an entrepreneur. So that wasn't a word that I knew to associate with the way that I thought about things back then.
Where do you think that came from then? I mean, I'm sure it's hard to remember, but do you know where that influence might have come from, or where you might have seen that modeled somewhere, if not around your family?
I'm not sure. I remember someone telling me a bit later on that my grandmother had a bit of an entrepreneurial streak.
Mm-hmm.
She was from Guyana, South America, and I think, at some point, it's a third world country, so, you've got to get scrappy
Mm-hmm. Right.
at some point there. And so I think they said, oh, maybe she used to go out and sell things or make things to sell or something like that. So I was like, okay, maybe that's where it came from.
Right. It's just in you. I love that you were like, no, I'm going to have a fleet of these that's going to handle it. I won't be driving one. I'll be managing it from the base. I love it.
I know. I was like, well, how dare you? You didn't even think that I could own this. What are you talking about?
Now, did you grow up in Brooklyn? You mentioned Brooklyn.
Yeah, so I actually grew up in both places. So it seems to be a Caribbean heritage type of thing where, you'll be raised by maybe your grandparents or relatives or so on in the country that your parents are from. I found this story to be common among a number of Caribbean friends that I have. And so I was born in Brooklyn, and then I went to Guyana at about 2 months old, and I was there until 7 or 8 years old, and then I came back to Brooklyn.
So what was a young Karen like growing up in Guyana?
I was pretty precocious from what from what I have been told. So I was raised pretty much like by my grandmother, my uncles, my cousins, and so on. And I just recall always being in some sort of trouble. I was like, just either my grandmother would catch me like leaning out of the window, trying to like pluck the mangoes off the tree or something, or, I was running all over the place. I recall going to the hospital for stitches in my chin at one time because my cousin was chasing me around the room, and I'm going to date myself just a little bit. And it was we had the telephone with the super long wire, and it wasn't, the phone was like in the middle of the room, and the wire like stretched all the way across the room to be plugged into the wall.
Right. There are some people listening right now who are like, what is that? I don't understand. Yeah. It wasn't a cell phone? I remember.
Thank you. And so I tripped over that wire, and I ended up having to get stitches. That was pretty much my life. I was always, running all over the place and so on. But I was also very introverted and as well, kind of very introspective kid, which I thought people were just kind of like, okay, we don't know how to balance those two things out. But I still find myself trying to balance those aspects of my personality.
And what was it like then when you made the move to the U.S.? Because you were about 7, you said, when you came back to the United States?
Yeah.
Was it a tough transition, or was it easy for you?
No, I mean, kids are resilient, right? Mm-hmm. So I think I very quickly adapted to my new surroundings. But I really do remember it being a shift. Like it was one of the more formative experiences for me, because it's like, even as an adult, I can still exactly remember that feeling of landing at JFK, and sort of peeking out the windows for the first time of the plane, and, getting in the car and driving along. I guess it was must have been the BQE, and I just saw this city for the first time. And I know I went into school shortly after, so it probably was like August or September or something. And I had come from, in Guyana, this lush, floral, vibrant, everything around me was color, and cobblestones, and just in my childhood memory, it was a magical place. And then I got to Brooklyn and I was just like, wait a minute.
Not
What's
quite
happening?
as lush on every street.
Yeah. I was just like, what just happened here? Who pulled the wool over my eyes? Because I did not agree to this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that was definitely really, really interesting. But I adapted and soon found quite a bit of beauty in Brooklyn too.
Who would you say were some of your greatest influences growing up?
Definitely my grandmother. As much as I think I sort of freaked her out by, my penchant for running around in boys' clothes and refusing to wear dresses and trying to throw myself into sand piles and just not being as girly or
Mm-hmm.
as like sort of delicate as she might have wanted me to be at the time. She really always let me know that I could do absolutely anything that I wanted. And from a very young age, for some reason, I think it was a lesson that she may have been trying to teach me. And she said, Karen, you're going to have to learn how to persevere. And I was just like, oh, I don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
And she said, okay, she's like, I'm just going to teach you the word and I'm going to teach you the meaning. And I want you to come back to this when times are hard. And eventually you will learn, what it means, because it'll just become a part of your character. And so she told me the word, she spelled it, she had me spell it back. And, she did that every once in a while. And I think that it laid a foundation for me throughout my life with regular, just personal challenges and then entrepreneurship, that it was such a very, very simple lesson. I don't think I really could have gotten by without that.
Wow, that's powerful. How do you, especially because at that time, when you're younger, you don't exactly know what it means, but obviously she wanted you to remember that word.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think about or in what ways have you had to sort of call on that word, or more so, I guess, call on that lesson throughout your journey? I'm sure there may have been several times with entrepreneurship, especially, but what are some times that you remember where you tapped into that lesson?
I think maybe the biggest time would have been when I decided to close my first business. So I'm on to my second business. And it was always like, I just, in general, being an entrepreneur is a lesson in perseverance,
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And, deciding whether or not I was going to close that first business was, I really found myself sort of butting up against the word. And I kind of was like, well, all right, how do I figure this out? How do I know if the time is right, if I'm doing the right thing? Do I hold on to this feeling of perseverance and know that I can do anything and I can go through any challenges, or do I just call it quits? And it really took me a long time to figure that out. And I think maybe in part because of that perseverance, I keep coming back to challenges, and I'm like, okay, well, what what can I do differently? How can I look at this differently? Can I turn it around? Can I, reshape it? Can I approach it from a different angle? And at that time with that business, there was nothing that I could do that would help it thrive. I think it really had come to the end of its journey. And so for me, I think the way that I saw perseverance in that was to say, this is it. And, it's like a relationship. This is it. This is okay. This is what it has taught me. This is the entrepreneur that it has helped me to become. Now I can take a pause and know that perseverance means that if I need to come back to something else, if I need to take a moment to gift myself with self-care, for example, then that's where I need to focus.
Wow, thank you so much. That's such a great lesson. And what was your first business?
My first business was it was a textile line. So I had been in the fashion industry for quite some time, and I really I just love the fabric and the level of detail and tailoring, and I worked with some really fantastic Italian brands, some well-known brands, and I couldn't find anything like that. I was just out of college, and I had my first apartment, and I would kind of go out and look around, and everything was very beige and sort of boring, and it just seemed like, everyone thought that like levels of brown, like shades of brown was how you sort of bring a house together. And it didn't reflect anything that I wanted in my home. I wanted to see that sense of fashion sort of come into the home. So I created these really fantastic and, vibrant and bold textiles and so on. And I ended up just starting really small. I actually started with greeting cards and prints. And then I got a little further and expanded into pillows and then, small gifts for the home. Yeah.
What do you think didn't work at a point when you got to that point where you realized it? What do you think didn't work about that business?
So I think what didn't work was that I didn't have a sense. I just kind of looked at some of my competitors in the space that were, much bigger than me and had been at it for much longer. And I didn't take into account the journey that they had been through to get from A to Z, or maybe, A to H in this case, right? And so I didn't take that into account. And I really just said, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do exactly what, they did. I can do it. Nothing's going to stop me. And I dove in headfirst with no knowledge, no foundation, really, and no support more than anything. And I really just tried to create this business like one of those ladies like balancing everything on the top of their heads.
Right.
That was me virtually with the business. And then also at the time, just logistically speaking, there were also more of the what do you call it? Sort of the more well-known, bigger brands, the West Elms and Targets and so on of the world, started making prints and so on that looked very similar. And so my sales reps, for example, would come back and they'd say, but there's something, at the trade show right across the hall for $12 and yours is $100. So it just was not an industry that I could compete in any longer.
Okay, I wanted to ask because, again, thank you for sharing that. I think it's a powerful lesson because of, especially for you being someone who was really taught that word perseverance. But I think for all of us as entrepreneurs, sometimes we can get caught up in the success, and not saying you did this, but I know I've been through this, the success that I see of other people or other companies and that kind of thing. And especially now, I think entrepreneurs are so celebrated, which is a great thing. But we don't often hear the part of the journey that is, I've started 10 companies or however many before this one actually worked. I mean, I recently posted a video from Mark Zuckerberg where he talked about how many companies or ideas or things that he had done before Facebook became the Facebook, so we don't often hear about that, or the times when you do have to bump up against this, I can do anything, I can make it happen, never quit, all of these messages that we hear, persevere. And having to come to terms with the point that, no, I don't think this is working. It's time to do something else, or it's time to let that go. So I don't know how it was for you. You mentioned some of it, but I know I've been in that space with having a business that I thought was going to be the thing. And there was a part of it that it felt like it wasn't working, but then also I didn't feel as excited about it. And I didn't feel that I was going to be committed enough to push through the period where it wasn't working. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally does. And that is very similar to the journey that I went on to finally come to the end of it.
So what was it like when you decided to close up that business and then move on to something else? Did you have the idea for We Shave at that time, or did you just say, I'm going to take a break and see what's next?
I took a break, actually. And you know what? I will be honest. What you were just saying about everyone sort of putting out this journey, or these like everyone just sort of putting out this feeling that the journey is so seamless, and I'm a serial entrepreneur and I've launched 10 companies and so on. I think it's so dangerous. Right. I think it's so dangerous to not be honest about what that really looks like, and how to deal with failure.
Yes.
And so one of the things that I went back to a full-time job, which actually sort of helped me direct me on the road to what became We Shave eventually. But I went back to a full-time job. I had a great opportunity that was presented to me at exactly the right time. And so I landed this job, and I kind of sat there and I thought, oh man, this is not how I saw it going. And
right, that's tough for entrepreneurs. Sorry to interrupt, but that's tough for entrepreneurs too, right? I know I've been there, like, oh, well, this job could be a great opportunity, but I'm supposed to be an entrepreneur. And it's sort of like, can it be a both and as opposed to either or?
Exactly. I was all about that side hustle, but it took time.
Mm-hmm.
It really took time. And, in sort of doing that and sitting down, I think it also gave me some space that I did not have at the time as an entrepreneur, because I was hustling to try and make this company, that former company, work.
Mm-hmm.
And my entire identity was wrapped up in it. And I didn't have the space because I was busy trying to make, my rent and pay the bills and keep it going and go on to the next thing. And also, it was a very relatively public company, meaning that, people followed me and they followed the brand. And it had great exposure in press and magazines and on TV and so on. And so I was so wrapped up in that. And when I sat down at the desk, in a cubicle, and with a new full-time job, I felt relief, but I also felt the sort of impact of failure, and what to me at the time felt like public failure. And after a couple of months, I went online and I looked up and I found the closest therapist to my job.
Very good. Very good. It's so important. I mean, that's part of self-care, and knowing when it's time to have those conversations with someone.
Yeah.
I would say therapy is, having the opportunity to talk to someone about the things you're thinking anyway.
Yes. Yeah. And I, as someone who I have a degree in, Bachelor of Science in psychology, and I have, never been ashamed of therapy. I just was like, hey, this is a place where I can unload, and there's no judgments. And if they're really good, they'll throw some questions back at me that help me maybe realize a little bit more of what might be going on.
Right. So without, of course, sharing what you discussed in your therapy, how did it help you sort of get through that time, and what important ways did it help you sort of transition?
The funny thing that I find about therapy or coaching or anything like that, which is I'm no longer in therapy, but I have a coach now. And the funny thing is that I kind of always laugh, because it's like, I just, in my mind, I see myself sort of stomping into therapy and, throwing myself down and being like, okay, this is what I'm going to talk about.
Mm-hmm. Fix it.
And then, yeah, exactly. And then, and then they ask you a few questions and you're like, no, that's not what I came here thinking I was going to talk about.
Same thing happened to me.
And so I just find it really funny, but fantastic and absolutely enlightening, because, what I ended up discovering with therapy, and this is, for me, therapy is also a journey, self-help books, talking to friends, all of that, just kind of wraps into the greater sense of self-care. But it just highlighted some other things that were going on, like maybe, why did I feel that I sort of had my identity tied into it? Was there something that I felt that I needed to prove? Was there someone that I felt that I needed to prove something to? So those were some of the things that I got a little bit deeper on with therapy. And then I think that gave me a foundation to launch a business where I could say, okay, I can step back a little bit now. And it came back to that. I didn't need to build something where I had to stand all on my own, shouldering everything. Like, that was not, I didn't need to be Superwoman,
That's right. Support is sexy, Karen.
Yes, it is.
So in what ways would you say that you're doing this business, We Shave, which we're going to dive into, but in what ways would you say that you went into this business, I should say, differently?
I'd say a couple of things. The lesson that I took from the first business was if you want to create a successful business, create something that solves a problem first.
Mm-hmm.
And it's wonderful if it solves your problem, because then you can actually get deep, on it. And it's a very, very personal journey that you can share. And we don't all have this, I'm the only person in the world with this exact problem. So when you find you have a problem, you talk to a few more people, and eventually, you'll see that other people may have this problem that needs solving as well. And then I think the second thing was, gosh, no more of this, I'm a sole, founder on this soul journey, and only I can do this sort of nonsense, as one of my bosses at my former company said to me one day when I showed up, sick and coughing and just kind of gross everywhere. And she goes, Karen, a hero is a sandwich. Go home.
A hero is a sandwich. Go home. I love it. It's so true. Don't be the hero.
Yeah. So solve a problem, just from the tenets of building a wonderful foundation for a business. And 2, do not go it alone again.
Mm-hmm. So in what ways did you call in support for this business? Is it, because you mentioned not going it alone, did you start it sort of within an incubator, or do you have other people who are co-founders, or in what ways do you have support?
So I'm the sole founder, but what I did is, as I grew, I just started searching for communities of similar people, whether similar industries, female founders and so on. And I started to realize that eventually what I would end up with was multiple communities, which I didn't really know at first. I kind of, I have this wonderful community of female creative entrepreneurs in Brooklyn that I had met through my previous company. And as I started understanding more about the position of WeShave, I kind of was like, well, it's not exactly the same as what I was doing before, e-commerce, and it has some sort of tech aspects to it. And so it didn't necessarily fit within the community that I had known before. And so I ended up kind of starting to just reach out a little bit and find other communities where it fit. Many of them on Facebook, some of them in person. And I remember I kind of felt a little guilty at first, because I was just like, these people that I've known from before, they're my girlfriends, they're my people.
Right.
Like, why would I need anything else? And I realized, yes, I do need everything else. I need everything else.
And you deserve everything else.
Yeah. And it didn't have to be just one-sided. So that was one of the first things that I did before I could even afford to hire help. I just started finding communities. And if someone said, oh, I did this program and it was really great, I would jump on, that program and, apply or see if it fit me or anything like that. And I just really started expanding my horizon. And it has just really changed what I can do with this company.
So tell us about the company WeShave. For everyone listening, it's OUI Shave. I love that. Tell us about the evolution of it, how it started, and what inspired you to start it. So
it started because I had been working the company that I went to after I closed my first company. It was one of the most prestigious beauty companies in the U.S. And I was so excited to be there, and I had everything at my disposal. It was like, do you want a mascara? Do you want a face cream? It was like Oprah was like giving out stuff right. All day, every day. It's like, you get a face cream and you get a mascara. And I just had access to everything. And I remember in April, maybe of like 2014, I think it was, my girlfriends and I were like, hey, the weather is finally kind of turning and it looks like spring might be here. Let's go get, mani-pedis. As most women tend to do, we shave for the girl who's giving us the pedicure, right?
Right, exactly, because you don't want to, insult her with your hairy legs.
It's like, oh, no, I can't have her touch my stubble, so I'm going to go shave. And, I remember as I picked up the razor thinking, yeah, here we go again. I've always had ingrown hairs and razor burn, and it's just been just an awful, adulthood of shaving. And so I, did the shaving cream, and I did a quick shave, went and met my girlfriend, and I put my leg up on the basin and rolled up my pant leg. And inside of my right thigh was just this big swath of razor burn.
Ooh.
And she looked at it and she goes, "What happened to your leg?" And I was just like, "Oh God, I just shaved. I mean, this is normal for me. I'm used to this." And and so we just started talking about it and how annoying, the entire process was, and how we'd never experienced a good shave and all of that. And around the same time, I saw that there were some men's companies launching, that were targeting shaving for men and making it a better experience or a cheaper experience. And here I was going into one of the most prestigious beauty companies every day to work. I had access to everything, and I still had a really bad experience shaving. And so I decided to put my research hat on, and I just sort of went down the rabbit hole of learning about razors and, angles and thickness and the actual history of shaving. And eventually I came across this razor called the safety razor. And when I did my research, I found that in 1915, this was the razor that women actually began shaving with. This was their first razor. And it is a beautiful metal razor that just has one single blade. And the reason it's called a safety razor is because there is a piece of the edge of the razor that sort of keeps the razor back a little bit from your skin so that you can shave safely. And I said, okay, well, I've seen this for men. As a matter of fact, I remember I would watch my uncles shave with this when I was younger, because we had that type of bathroom. We had like a giant, shower, and then the toilet was on the outside, and then the sink was like completely outside of that. And so they shaved like outside of the bathroom, and I would get up and I'd kind of hear like the clink, clink, clink of the razor against the sink, when they sort of washed it out or shook it a bit. And, they use like the smelly shaving powder thing that smelled awful. But, I would watch, and they would just take these really beautiful, careful, precise strokes. And my uncles never had razor burn or I saw them with ingrown hairs. And believe me, like, these were men who use like women's perfume if they thought it smelled better. So these guys were very, very, very particular about their skin and, about their choices. And so all of those things just kind of flooded me. And I said, wait a minute, can I do this? And so I ordered some samples and had them delivered, tested it, and it was the most amazing shave of my life. For the first time in my entire adult life, I did not have ingrown hairs or razor burn. And it blew my mind. And I said, I'm going to figure out how to introduce this to women. And I started it from my kitchen table.
Wow. Now, so many questions. Now, did women stop using the single blade or the safety razor for some reason, or in your research, what was it or did these other razors that are, I believe I saw in some of the research, cheaper, just become more popular because of that? Is it sort of the market was steered that direction as opposed to this way?
Yeah, so the market was steered that direction. A safety razor is a beautiful razor that you actually never have to throw away. The only thing that you would ever buy is replacement blades. So as the sort of shave giants grew, they moved from that into plastics manufacturing. So when you make a plastic razor, for example, you just need that one mold for the handle, and then you could like throw all sorts of R&D maybe into the blade, so that every year you could say, well, this one does this and 7 blades do this for you. And, you kind of can always keep it going a bit. But
and I hear those double blades are horrible for our skin.
They are.
Those lift-in, yes.
Yeah, because they lift and pull the hair. And so they're made to give someone with like a coarse beard maybe might get a smoother shave from that, because as you go over the beard, it can keep cutting so that you, in one stroke, maybe you get a smoother shave. But for a woman's leg or bikini area, that is just way too much. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So what have you found that has been especially good, or in what ways, I should say, is We Shave especially good for women?
So the first thing I would say is that introduction to the safety razor. So what we are doing is educating women on this, why it's better for their skin, how it actually works for us and leaves us with smoother skin and sort of less ravaged skin as well. And in addition, we've developed an entire line of products that go with this. It's unlike anything that women have seen before. So I took cues from the beauty market. We have all these wonderful oils and so on that we really pay attention to what goes into our skin. But I found that when women were shaving, and this is me included because there was nothing else on the market to choose from, we basically took these awful cans of foam that were pretty much gas, like multiple different gases, and then all of these other ingredients that are actually fillers. They're not, they're synthetic ingredients that are made to feel like real ingredients. So if you ever look at the back of a can of shaving foam, you'll see like all these ingredients that you basically can't pronounce. And what they are is like a synthetic ingredient that's made in a lab that is supposed to make our skin feel smooth or feel moisturized. And it's really, so you step into a shower, you open up, your pores and so on, basically, and then you use a horrible shaving foam that sort of sinks into your skin and shave that. And we thought about so many other aspects of our beauty routine, and this was the one that was left out. So what we have designed is the routine that goes with this really, really fantastic shave. And it includes our shave oils, which are 100% natural and in some cases organic. And the shave oil is the cornerstone of the product line because what it does is it moisturizes your skin and preps it for shaving. It allows the razor to glide over your skin, no bumps, no skips, no hops or anything like that. And then you just rinse and it leaves your skin beautifully moisturized at the end. And I'm pretty excited because we're also launching now these exfoliating pads we're launching in July, which help to target ingrown hairs and razor burn and so on. So
I'm excited about that. I'm excited about your whole line. I love it. But I'm excited about that because I feel like that's something that we all could use, even if, everything is smooth. But it's nice to have something just to settle it down a little bit, especially with summer being here right now.
Yeah. And I remember I would go to I think like the corner stores that sold, they sold everything that you could think of, everything from hair grease to shea butter to wigs and
right.
And there was this one sort of aftershave thing that I would buy that was basically like jet fuel. And I put that on my skin to try and calm it down after. And you basically end up burning your skin in order to try and combat,
right.
the results of the bad shave. And it just really, really was just not what I found appealing at all. And it was just terrible for my skin.
It sounds like the brand overall is really focused on the experience, which is something that, for everything else, as you said, with the other kind of razors or shaving cream, it's just use this to feel blah, blah, blah. But it feels like are focused on the experience for the woman when she's shaving and after.
Yeah. We're focused on the experience and we are focused on providing the highest quality ingredients, the highest quality shave and the products that go around that. We really just want to change the way that women, as you said, experience shaving. And that's something that when I thought back to my uncles, I was just like, their entire shave routine was built on this experience.
Right.
Yeah. And women had nothing like that. I remember sort of being in the shower around 12, 13, and I was just like, well, there's my mom's razor. Let's go to town.
Right. Sitting over in the corner, getting moldy. Exactly.
And then I stepped out the shower and my entire body was on fire. And I was like, oh, I don't think I did that well at all. So we're about teaching women also how to shave.
And it seems, and making it accessible too. I read where you mentioned, and I'm looking at them now, just the razors, for example, have names of the women in Sex and the City, the Carrie razor, the Charlotte, the Samantha.
Yeah, yeah. So, one of the things was when we first launched, I realized that women, this would be new to many of our customers. So I wanted to make it something that they could relate to. Also, one of the things about we is that the we means yes, of course. So yes in French, yes to shaving. If that's what you choose to do, we are here for you. But it also, I wanted it to have the phonetic sound of we, as in like we the community of women. And so when come to this, I love hearing people sort of say it. They have such a fascination with the name, but that was exactly the result that I wanted to drive, was this sense of when you come to We Shave, this is made for you by people who look like you, by people who have the same problems that you do, by people who wanted better solutions. And so when you're here, you're part of a community of women who get it.
Right. So, not to get too deep into the weeds of the process, but I'm curious for people who are listening who have products or things that they want to bring to market. What were some of the steps that you took initially in order to get We Shave out to the market? I'm sure you had to work with manufacturers and that kind of thing, but what would you say the process was like to finally have it be introduced in the way that it has been?
So what I did is I started researching bloggers who were, part of the natural beauty movement, for example, people who were really fanatic about ingredients and so on. And I knew I had something that could spark attention because I didn't have that many competitors out there. And so I just kind of started reaching out to people and said, hey, I saw that you, posted about this line, or I follow your blog or so on, and I love what you're doing. And I just wanted to let you know that we're introducing this brand of shave products that are created for women by women, and I'd love for you to check it out. And one of those bloggers reached out and said, wow, this is so cool. I've never seen anything like it. By the way, I'm actually going to be at this small get-together at a spa in New York, with a few other bloggers just talking shop. And, I'd love if we'd love to meet you. And I said, heck yeah. And I at the time I was still working full time. I went down right after work, and I, went into this room of just a handful of bloggers were there in this tiny spa, I think on the lower, west side area. And, they just took to it. They took to the brand, and I was able to be there in person and sort of passionately talk about what we had done, why we had done it, what our purpose was. And so they were able to see that passion. And from there, one blogger, another blogger picked it up and just kind of kept going with it and followed us on Instagram and took photos and, and so it just took off from there. And then that gave me the confidence as well to kind of, okay, well, now I'm going to start reaching out to some of the, the Refinery 29s and so on of the world, because I see how people react to this once they have seen it and tried it. And it wasn't even that, they asked for anything for free. I mean, once they heard me speak about the brand, people bought it immediately and then bought it for friends as well.
I love that. And I love this idea too. I mean, I think in this age now, especially with so many things being online, which is a good thing because it connects us to people all around the world, but you can never underestimate the power of presenting or sharing in person when you have that opportunity.
Yeah. And I never, I try never to forget that, because anytime I get to speak to women in person about it, even if it's other entrepreneurs, I always end up with someone going, so I'm purchasing it right now as you speak.
Right, exactly.
And so there's this power behind, showing up in person and showing that you are truly passionate about it. And then there's also power in just creating a really great product that's needed as well.
Now, you launched in 2014, right? Officially launched in 2014?
Officially launched in 2015. So
15.
2014, I kind of like went out to friends and family and was like, hey, I just drew up this website. I'd love to see what you guys think of it, that sort of thing. But it was kind of a soft launch to throw it out there and see if anyone came back and said, are you out of your mind? Who's going to buy this?
And right, which people didn't, they bought, right?
Yes, they bought. And even my friends have been some of my biggest advocates. I call them my walking sales reps.
Oh, that's so good. So now tell me, what has the response been like, though, overall since you launched? I know you mentioned the bloggers, and I think you've received press in Vogue and Bazaar as well as Refinery 29, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It has been absolutely fantastic. So, as you mentioned, Refinery 29, Vogue, Harper's Bazaar, Town and Country, Real Simple. I'm actually just, well, I think it should be on the newsstands now.
Uh-oh.
So I should be able to
Scoop.
say it. But one of our products, the aftershave toner, won an award from Real Simple magazine.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So I'm pretty excited about that. But yeah, we have had really, really fantastic response. At the end of the day, I think the biggest lesson that I've learned is track those responses and, is this enough to keep me going? Is this enough to get to the next step? Like when it gets beyond friends and family, when people are parting with their money, when they're coming back for the return sale, like those are the things that I track and say, okay, we've got something here. And so we have customers who have bought for themselves, bought for girlfriends, bought for, sisters and friends. And they come back and they're like, I've never experienced anything like this in my life. It's wonderful to them. And in some cases, some women have problems even greater than just razor burn, very, very sensitive skin that reacts to so many of the products, and no one ever knew. No one ever said your shave cream sucks. Your shave cream is bad for you, or the razors. They're not meant for our skin. And so for them, it really has actually been life changing. I've had customers who said, "This summer is the first in years that I'm able to wear shorts because of your brand." And so
Wow.
those things, it's incredibly moving and absolutely wonderful. And it really keeps me, getting up the next day to charge ahead.
So important. One of the things you mentioned, too, just about this idea of tracking and seeing will people part with their money for this product, which is really the way people show you if they support or not, beyond Instagram followers, which is great. Your Instagram is amazing. It's beautiful. So everyone will have to check it out. But I mean, just beyond that, people say, oh, I have a huge Instagram following. I have a great business. And it's sort of looking at really tracking the real numbers.
Yeah, yeah. And, my first business, we had incredible press, but it didn't always translate to
To sales.
sales. Yeah. And so for me, this was the lesson to kind of say, okay, and every business, it's like, I call them like markers, like you go through, okay, first 6 months, first year. All right, what are the markers? What have I seen happen over that course of time that says I can make this next leap? I can take this next step. I can bring on this new product. And so those are the things for me. I look at how often my customers are coming back, how much they're enjoying it, what they're telling us, and I make sure to speak to them as well. And I reach out and ask them how we're doing and what we can do better.
What is the response? That's been the response, as we mentioned, from customers and the press, which has been great. But how has the response been in the industry? Because you're sort of a disruptor in the industry, really focusing on women in this category.
Yeah. So, in all honesty, I think that right now we are in a place where I always say there's a little bit of a gloss over entrepreneurship. So we have been able to get some good response from like Forbes and so on, some of the industry magazines that have really picked us up. But there's a gloss right now that is sort of putting a spotlight on entrepreneurs who have raised money for their businesses, raise venture capital. And we haven't as yet. And it's not something that's ruled out at all. But, we're a small and profitable company. So at the moment, I would say that what I'm finding is that most of the industry magazines are kind of like, oh, this person, or this company raised this much money. Mm-hmm. And that's what the focus seems to be on. And more so even the smaller guys who are disrupting or changing the way something is done, because I don't have that gloss of, VCs that have, sort of believed in the line or anything like that. So
it's interesting because a lot of companies, or I should say not a lot, there have been now entrepreneurs coming out who have raised money and who talk about the sort of this illusion that because you've raised money, you're a profitable business. Like some of these huge companies have raised millions of dollars and their business is still not profitable. But meanwhile, like you mentioned, smaller companies or just others who haven't necessarily raised or who haven't raised as much are profitable, but don't get as much of the shine or the headlines.
Yeah. And so at the end of the day, for me, it's about the customer, understanding my company, mm-hmm. understanding my business. We do intend to maybe at some point down the line raise, but I'd like to do it when I think it's right, and when I think we are in a really good position to do so. But I saw this VC tweet the other day that he had entrepreneurs coming to him that said that they felt like failures because they had companies that were doing in the millions and they were profitable, but they were not in the headlines like some of these companies who had raised money. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And to each their own, truly. Business is hard enough without us saying you did this wrong or you did that wrong.
Right.
But yeah, it's a trend. And I think that's understanding that's one of the things that I would say I took from one failed company, going into therapy and coming back as a stronger person, able to build and run a business. And that is understanding the trends, understanding that what, major, players in magazines and tech and so on want to talk about as compared to actually what's really happening.
Now, are you completely self-funded or did you do a friends and family round, or what kind of money do you have to support the business?
No, I am completely self-funded. So,
hey, Karen, go girl. We have to support you. Yes.
Thank you. So one of the very funny things, I remember one day I was like thinking about how I was going to structure this and allow it to grow. And I was on the train platform headed into work. And I mean, it was so funny. I literally, for the first year, especially, I would get up at 6:00 every morning. I had to be at work at 9. I'd get up at 6:00 every morning. I would pack all of the orders that had come in, put them in like giant shopping bags. Like I had like a big IKEA bag, and I would like get on the train knocking people over. And,
you were that person.
I was that person. And I would take the boxes to the post office in the morning near work. So I would take them from Brooklyn into Manhattan because the post office in Brooklyn hadn't opened as yet. And I would drop them off in Manhattan, and then I would rush into work. I'd be a sweaty mess by the time I got there. And so it's just really funny to like really think about how it has like really truly happened and what it really looks like on the back end.
What does it look like now? Are you still shipping things out yourself, or are you working with a company, or how does it work for you now?
So I'm so excited because we have a full chemist and an entire lab on board now who creates all of the products with our direction and with the direction, from our customers and feedback from our customers, I should say. And then so where we are now is we're actually launching a brand new line to come in July, like late July. Mm-hmm. And we are moving into this entire new process. And so it'll also be packed by a fulfillment center, most likely.
Fantastic. I love when I hear that companies are doing that. I mean, I love the stories of the knocking people over on the train, because so many friends that I have who have product companies just talk about that part of the journey. But then when you finally get to the point where you feel like, wow, I can bring in a fulfillment house or someone to help me, it just really feels like, oh, the brand is growing.
Yeah. And what I meant to say earlier is I sort of made myself laugh so much with the story, the memories of knocking people over. But I really started this brand with $1,500 and a dream. And
wow.
so the story that I was trying to recall was I was on the standing on the train platform with my boxes, kind of like laughing to myself. And I said, this brand, if a lot of people compare their businesses to having kids. And I don't have kids as yet, but it's kind of like this little thing that you raise and you hope you're doing everything okay, sort of in between. And this is going to grow up to be a sustainable, fantastic adult. But I said to myself, if the brand can't support itself within the next 6 months to a year, then I know that I'm doing something wrong. And within the next 6 months to a year, it did that. It has been on its own legs ever since.
Wow. So do you feel like giving yourself sort of a deadline, so to speak, really do you feel like it pushed you to really make it happen? Or do you just feel like it was a deadline that you had in mind and it was just, the business did what it needed to do? Or a combination?
Yeah, I think a combination, it pushed me to say, okay, well, it's not like I don't have forever. So I've got to get this out there to as many people as possible. I've got to talk about it as much as possible and see the response. Do people need this? Do they need it? Are they going to part with their money? And what are they going to say once they have? Yeah. And then also, it was like, all right, well, I've got this time, this time frame for this business to stand on its own legs. So if you're going to do it, you're going to do it now.
That's right. Now, you sell products on your website, of course, weshave.com, which we'll have links to, but you also sell in stores too, right? Like Urban Outfitters?
Excuse me. Yes. So we have been primarily direct to consumer. And that was actually the goal upon launching, was to be a direct-to-consumer line, because I really wanted to be in touch with our customer. I didn't want to have any sort of spaces in between the brand and the customer. I wanted to be there to ask and answer everything that they needed and to get to know them better. So our first 2 years were direct-to-consumer. And then I, just sort of took a look at the industry, and I had been approached by a number of stores and turned them away in the course of like those first couple of years, because it just wasn't where I thought that we needed to be. And then it occurred to me that beauty is a very tactile experience still, So speaking of some of the things that are trending right now, it's the whole, direct to consumer is the way to go, and it's everything. And, that's every new brand that launches is direct to consumer. But I really think to each business, its own. And for us, beauty is something that, I think about the times I've gone into Sephora, even up to recently with some of my girlfriends, and we have been in there for hours.
Right. You just lose yourself. Like, what am I came in here for a lipstick. What is happening?
Exactly. You got it exactly right. Like that is, we went in to get a re-up on a lipstick that my friend had and loved. And each of us walked out with something else and spent hours playing around, like we were in Wonderland or something.
Right.
3 grown women in a candy store.
Right.
And that's something that I wanted women to be able to experience as well, is to, go and smell the product and feel the heft of the razor and get a different sense of it.
So what was it like getting your products in the stores? Has it primarily been companies approaching you, as you mentioned, or have you done some of the sort of going to stores and saying, I'd love to have our products there? Just for people who are listening again, who might be looking at how to do that.
Yeah, so for us, it was mainly companies approaching us. So that was pretty exciting to, open up the email one day and get the email from Urban Outfitters and Free People and so on. Free People has since sold out 3 or 4 times.
Wow.
So that's been really, really exciting. So mostly it is. And, I'll tell you, I actually, my background, like right after college, the first thing that I did was to launch I went into sales. So I was an account executive. And so I sold to Saks and Barney's and so on of the world. And I repped the lines that I was working with wholesale. So I had that experience and understanding of how to, approach brands and so on. But there's a thing now, it's more about actually like how you present online, for example, and who's talking about you, as opposed to you can always still go out to stores, but I am actually finding that there's a little bit of FOMO that's happening. And so if you want to be in stores, become that brand that people are going to think they're missing out on something if they don't get it. And that's how we position, to the point that retailers now approach us every day to be carried, to carry the line.
I love that. You're optimizing FOMO. You're missing out.
FOMO. That's great.
I love it. So what would you say, Karen, is your vision for WeShave as you look ahead to the next few years? Even though I hate for people to say, what's your 5-year goal? Just next week, the end of this month. What are you feeling? What are you excited about?
I'm super, super, super excited about our new line that's coming out. So it's fantastic to have the support of a chemist and a full lab behind us, especially one that gets our absolute commitment to natural products with minimal ingredients and the highest quality ingredients that we can, produce. And so a few months ago, I actually reached out to some of our top customers and I said, hey, we are changing up a little bit. This is what's going on behind the scenes. And as we go forward, I want to actually produce the next line with you. Like, I don't want to pretend that we know exactly what you need. I want you to tell us what you need. Mm-hmm. And I sent the survey, and they came back and flooded us with information on exactly what they needed from the brand. And that is what we created that's launching this month. So I'm super excited about that. I think that, we're on to a really, really big idea, in part, not just because we are doing something that hasn't necessarily really been done before in this way, or repackaging it or making it better. I think we're on to a big idea because we are talking to our customer each and every step of the way.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Now, what would you say entrepreneurship overall has taught you about yourself as a woman?
Oh, that's a good one. I think that I kind of always I would hear those stories where they say, oh, women can't have it all and so on. And I would just get really nervous about that. And, I'd be like, well, geez, but I want this and I want that. Mm-hmm. And, I want that too. So every article that I've ever read, though, is telling me that I can't have it all. And I think entrepreneurship has taught me that having it all is different for every person, and it's constantly in flux, but there is absolutely nothing that I cannot have, that I cannot will, that I cannot manifest, that I cannot produce and create with my own two hands in some way and with my mind.
Now, what does your support network look like while you're creating all of this?
So I have completely changed that concept of support, and I think it's part of what has made me successful. And I'm so grateful for that, for being able to go from that, I'm doing this all by myself. I have no help, no one understands, kind of woe is me sort of mentality, to I have a group of girlfriends who are there at any time, have offered to come pack boxes in exchange for pizza, like those kind of amazing, incredible women. And then I have these groups of female founders, who are willing to hop on a phone call with me for 30 minutes or something, just to tell me about an experience. I ask a question in a group or something, and they're like, oh, this is what I did. This is how, I'll hop on a phone call and tell you about it. I have a wonderful fiance who has really been helping me maneuver this and sort of understand a little bit more of the VC world as well, if we decide to raise. Mm-hmm. And just supportive friends and family who have become customers even. So it has been really, really, really fantastic, and such a shift from when I really thought I was hanging out there, alone by myself.
It can feel really lonely. That was one of the reasons that I started just the idea of support is sexy, because I went through that same, and what I found was, as you said, talking to other women entrepreneurs and founders, a lot of us were sort of feeling lonely and didn't know, how exactly to make those connections. So it's so important to figure that out.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's been life-changing.
What about, you mentioned earlier, I want to be conscious of your time, but you did mention earlier about having a coach. How has that been helpful for you?
So it's a relatively new relationship, but
Mm-hmm.
what I like about having a coach so far, in particular the one that I'm working with, is that I've always been very visual. And so she relies on that as well and sort of helps me visualize where I want to be, what I want my life to look like. And then rather than, let's say, therapy, which was wonderful, but therapy was more of just talking it out kind of and undercover, like sort of uncovering some of the things that were going on, getting to the root of it and kind of, just having those wonderful aha moments, which is fantastic. But coaching is more about the steps and less about you are still uncovering things, but more about the how do you take those steps to get there, to where you want to be or where you sort of envision yourself. And so that I've really been enjoying too. But I've always been curious. So to me, it's just another reason to be curious about my life and what's going on and what I can do better.
Plus, you studied psychology, didn't you say?
Yes.
Yeah. That's me.
Yeah.
I'm very interested in psychology, even though I didn't study it, but I'm just fascinated about the way we all think and that kind of thing, how it all plays and how our past life or our life growing up plays into who we are today.
Yeah, yeah, it's really important to look at all of that because many of the things that we think that we own, like, oh, I am this person or so on.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't just own it, it came from somewhere. Many of us have adopted traits that we didn't even know, where they came from. And so I think for me, I wanted to figure out how to live my best life and how to examine maybe any traits that I had that weren't exactly jiving with that. Like how can I shift that so that I can be happy and fulfilled?
So, in closing, Karen, if you think over your life and career and you had the chance to thank only one person whose support was critical to you personally or professionally, who would that be and what would you say?
So you'll probably guess this by now, but it's definitely my grandmother. Just the fact that as a young kid, she just really let me figure it out and gave me the space to do it without judgment. Um, was absolutely essential to the fact that I could even dare to dream the way that I do now. A lot of people will say, "Well, God, how did you even come up with that idea? Or how did you even know that you could do it?" And it's because this wonderful woman, Doris was her name, was just like, whatever, just go do it, go try.
Persevere.
Persevere, go try, but also know that there will be challenges, that things may not happen exactly as you want them to, when you want them to, but go back to the drawing board and believe in yourself.
That's right. Now, tell us how we can support you. As I mentioned, I'll have a link to your website, of course, but tell everyone just so they can hear it and social media and anything else that you want us to know about.
Yeah, so I would love for you to check out the site, weshave.com, if you have ever experienced the horrors of shaving and ingrown hairs and so on. Check it out. I think we've got a wonderful potential solution for you. We are also, the new products that are launching will also help if you wax or laser as well. We're branching out to just really, really take care of women's skin during and after hair removal. We're on Instagram at WeShave and Facebook as well. Our Facebook page is also facebook.com/WeShave. And just come chat. And also, if I can help you in any way, in sort of figuring out your journey, I'm happy to lend a few words as well.
Excellent. And again, it's ouishave.com. Right? Did I spell
Yes.
that right? Okay, good.
Yes.
You're probably like, did I get it right? Excellent.
Yes.
Now, did you also, I think I saw that you have a discount. Did you have a discount for our listeners? Or something?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Tell us about it.
We wanted to offer a little discount. So support is sexy. Put that in the coupon code at checkout. And we've got a little something for you guys. So I believe it's 15% off of anything on the site. So now you get a little extra boost for checking us out.
Yes, thank you. That's beautiful. I love that. The site is, again, the products look amazing. I can't wait to try them. I see a couple of the razors I want, or the razor sets are sold out, but I'm happy. That means they're selling well. So I'm going to look and see what else is there. But thank you so much. I really appreciate you sharing your story and how truthfully or honestly you shared your journey with us, Karen.
Thank you. Thank you. I really, really appreciate the opportunity to. It definitely felt like I was chatting with my girlfriend. So you've done a great job.
Wonderful. Now, before you go, what's a parting piece of advice from you to our listeners about anything?
Parting piece of advice. I would say get curious. Get curious about anything that's nagging at you, whether it's something that you think might be holding you back and you want to, figure it out a little bit, or whether it's a business idea that you're thinking about launching, start sketching it out. Get curious. Don't judge it. Don't expect anything from it. Don't expect windfalls and answers, but just get curious. And I think that you'll find at the end of that journey, you may be someplace completely unexpected.
Fantastic. Karen Young, hold on just a second.
Sure.
All right, I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Karen Young. Be sure to go to supportissexypodcast.com, go to the search icon at the top, and just search Karen, Karen, and her show notes page will pop up with all of the resources and all of the links for how you can get in touch with her and with We Shave, and to get your discount on We Shave products through Support is Sexy. So go to supportissexypodcast.com, check it out, get in touch. I believe Karen told me that the discount is going to be available for listeners for the next 30 days. So go over there right now, check it out. Be sure to buy some of the beautiful products. I can't wait to get my razor and all of the other products there. So be sure to check it out. Also, if you're a longtime listener or you're new to the podcast, know that I appreciate you, but I want to make sure that you don't miss an episode. So please be sure to subscribe to the Support is Sexy podcast wherever you listen, on whatever your favorite platform is. Please be sure to subscribe. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please do leave us a review. I always say I'd love a 5-star review, but any kind of feedback, I would truly appreciate it. It helps me to know what you think of the show, and it helps other people to learn more about the show. So I want to continue to spread this message that support is sexy for women, and especially women entrepreneurs who are creating something sexy in this world. We need to get the word out, and I could use your support in that way. All right, so know again that I truly appreciate you. It would not be the same without you, as I always say. And until next time, you know what to do. Go out there and create something sexy, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.